next, we've got a talk about fueling your Web3 project. And I heard there's some really great tidbits in there about growth hacking. So please give a warm welcome to Praneeth Patlola, CTO and growth hacker at Opolis.
Thanks, Stephanie. Hello, everyone. Good morning. I guess everyone has their morning coffee, and you're all jogged up. My name is Praneeth Patlola. I'm the CTO and growth hacker at Opolis. If you're curious about Opolis, Opolis is a co-op. We are kind of a Web3 crypto payroll company making employment kind of accessible and independent, and we help a lot of freelancers and independents across the world. So why am I here? When I was talking to John Paller, he was indicating, Web3 as our industry, we come together and build amazing products, game-changing products, challenging the status quo and growth. But one of the key elements which is missing around is, how do you actually achieve growth hacking or enabling your product adoption at mass market? And that's kind of where we started out discussing. Maybe we'll share some tidbits. My background is as a developer straight for several years. I used to build this shittiest ideas ever which came to my mind and still struggle to figure out after building, how do I sell this to market? Rather than trying to figure out what is the right thing to build. Going through several of these failures, I got my life lessons learned. That kind of led to two exits, which are OK, and find its place in a bigger, better place where they're now residing. But I took those life lessons and started adopting to a lot of products around me and helping friends. And that's when we started figuring out what is really growth hacking in our sense. So growth, we build these amazing products. Who doesn't want growth? I think we all build with this vision of building an amazing products and making sure it actually creates impact. And that impact can only be created if it reaches enough audience around the world that we intend to. Now, we are at Denver, and you probably have seen so many hackathons happening around. I don't think I have to explain what is a hackathon or hacking. But in general, humans as us have always figured out hacking ourselves into multiple ways across our lifetime. Can that be applied for your products? And how can that be applied for products is actually a very streamlined, disciplined process. Let's look at a little bit more of what is really growth hacking. Growth hacking, in general, in industry philosophy, has these three primary things that come together to make that happen. One, you come up with a very cost-effective or in a scrappiest creative marketing initiatives that you think might work. And you don't know whether it works or not. That's where you need to iterate and test. It's an iterative process. But once you formulate this idea of this is what I want to test, you build that test, and you build an automation to figure out it actually can scale, and then bring that to optimize and measure that. Without measuring that, you'll be lost in all this marketing cycle and growth hacking. Now, let's look at some examples. One of the most popular examples in product world is Airbnb. If somebody called me up and said a long time ago, 10, 15 years ago, that I'm going to put a stranger in your home for a day, I don't know whether it worked or it wouldn't work. So it's kind of a journey on how actually it would work. So Airbnb did something very, very interesting. Is they went to where a market is. This market of listings were already on Craigslist, which has several cities and several listings coming up every day. So how do you reach to this audience and create and sell their better product and service? And that's exactly what they did, is go and build an automation process to find out all these listings, generated an automation to pre-fill a listing with a single click, which enabled them to scale all their listings into their platform. But they didn't stop there, but also built the demand and reached out to the same email addresses of the host who was listing the Craigslist. So they actually brought supply and demand together, and it is at a high scale. They can repeat this again and again. This is not just one experiment, but each product and company goes through multiple of these experiments to find out what is that they can grow in what stage of a process. I would assume everybody is familiar with Robinhood. They have a different case study we have seen that, curiosity. How do you build curiosity before launch or the pre-launch techniques? It's like when you're bar hopping, you're walking past two bars. One is totally empty, and others, there's so much of noise and too many people. And it has a line. Which one would you go for? Possibly you want to go there in the line and stand in there, but to bump yourself up, you probably want to tip the doorman to get in there faster, but you're still waiting to go and get into that curiosity of, because everybody is joining in there. But also, how do you enable a user to take an action? That's exactly a referral mechanism, which is much more actionable, is what another example of hacking strategies people have done. And LinkedIn, when LinkedIn came out in initial, when Reid Hoffman and his team were building this, social networks was already there, and professional social networks seems like freaking boring. But how did they come to bring that adoption together was not one, but numerous amount of growth hacks, as one of the big thing was building a widget to bring your existing network from your address book with a single click, which will change the game for every user, and several other engagements on an ongoing basis to enable existing users to bring external in their own network. That's kind of fun. I think it will take a day to talk about each of these case studies. So I guess my intent is to kind of find out and tell, what is this process really about? The most important thing about growth hacking, never, ever, ever touch growth hacking, talk about scale, if you do not have a product market fit. Now, what is product market fit? I think it will take another day to talk about this one topic. There's so many practices of how to find a product market fit. But the most important thing is, build something which users want or need. And that can be categorized whether it's kind of a 1x or 2x, which does better than an existing product a user uses for productivity, which means they're getting the job done. Or is it something which users cannot live with, and you're challenging the status quo of an existing way people or humans do things. But build something which people want, and ensure you have a large addressable market. If you don't have enough large addressable market, you'll build something awesome for a very small amount of users, and you can't even scale that. So understand your TAM, and also understand the serviceable market within that. You would probably think that on day zero of the product that every human in this world would be a user of your product, but you can't reach all of them. And if you even attempt to do that, you lose the journey of what is called as a crossing the chasm, which we'll talk about in the next slide. So what is this crossing the chasm, which is very popular in the product world, is many a times we see large market and say, we want to go and address everybody. But it's very challenging without a proof point if people really wanted to actually use your product. Now, I would highly recommend you read this book, Crossing the Chasm, if you get a chance to learn more what is that. But the most important thing is walking through your serviceable, addressable market journey and building your fan base and proof of, or what is another word called as cult of user base, to grow that mechanism over a period of time to actually end up into the large mass adoption market. If you start at the large mass adoption market early on, there are so many case studies in industry that you actually fail out, even though you'll see initial success. While you're actually trying to find out, it surprised me every time I go into a marketing meeting that people talk about messaging, people talk about target, people talk about cost and everything else. But many of these marketing meetings misses out user's persona. If you do not get your user persona right in each iteration correctly, your marketing attempts will fail. You'll just lose all your time and energy and effort selling wrong messaging to wrong person. It's like trying to sell a hair oil or combs to a person who doesn't have hair. So you can't really do that. Understand your user base much in depth, which will enable you to actually build a very effective mechanism of reaching out that audience. Now, all this putting together, growth hacking is not like a one-time done exercise. It's kind of an iterative process. You come up with this nonsensical ideas sometimes, or some gut feel ideas, or some market research ideas, but build this list of all the campaign ideas that you can, which will enable you to actually prove to the market, and build and prioritize that. Many people use what is called as an ICE framework. ICE stands for, impact, how much impact can it make, confidence, and how easily can you build it. You don't want to build a big experiment and fail at it. You build some tiny experiments, iterate that, measure that, see if it works. It doesn't work. If it worked, then how do you repeat that and rinse it? But the big question people ask me once I'm just, how many times do you have to do this? How many experiments does it take to scale? Well, it depends on your product and the market. And this is a great example. Like in Twitter, initially when they were doing just a few tests or even like less than one test in a week, they were doing some results, but when the product team actually, growth team actually migrated the strategy to do maximum amount of tests per week, the growth curve increased. And I don't think we have time to talk about what kind of experiments it's run, but you can find all this information once you get into that. The most important part of growth hacking or the journey is optimization. You have to optimize and know when to optimize and how to optimize, because something fail, like you are having 0.1% of conversion rate. That's not the end of it. You need to know how you're going to increase that conversion, what impact can you bring with conversion, and there is no limit to the conversion. It's based on your addressable market and how much you can actually achieve from the conversion points. Lastly, how do you measure this? You know, in the product world, people call this as pirate metrics in one word, or North Star metrics. It's actually too many metrics around. But pick what is most important for measuring the impact of that experiment. How do you measure the impact of your experiment? How do you measure that it actually created impact for your users or those iteration for their experiment? Super, super important. But there's so many standards of analytics that you can build today readily using several tools online. That's about it. I kept it short enough because I think we're running 5 minutes behind already. But if you guys have any questions and wanted to actually talk about more or use me as a sounding board to run off one of your shitty experiments, I'm happy to do that anytime. Thanks a lot. And I want to thank Denver. I think I've been to so many conferences, but this is the amazing conference I've been for my life. Thank you. And thanks to all of you for patiently listening. Thank you.